After swiping over 54 people on an app, she selected a victim, convinced the stranger to meet up, and committed the unthinkable. What started out as a fascination with true crime gradually became an obsession for one young adult, leading her to create her own disturbing story. You would never guess it. Citizens described her as ordinary in appearance, yet the actions that unfolded one spring night would shock Busan City to its core. When confronted with the incident, she told police she did it out of curiosity.
제정신이 아니었던 것 같습니다. 죄송합니다.
Sending the city into a panic with one question haunting their thoughts. Did a love for true crime really turn someone so evil? In a world consumed by screens and connections, where strangers become intertwined in the virtual realm, a sinister tale unfolds. This is Jung Yoo-jung, a young adult aged 23 and a seemingly ordinary girl, blending seamlessly into the bustling streets of Busan, South Korea. She's described as having a typical round face, different from the archetype of South Korea's most notorious criminals who had sharp features and unsettling gazes. Still, something was off. 3 months before Jung's dark descent, she found herself in the darkest corners of the media. Jung was reading novels and watching TV programs and movies from the true crime genre. Night after night, Jung fed her mind with tales of manipulation, deceit, and unspeakable acts. This went on for 3 months, from February to April. A seemingly innocent activity many of us also partake in, whether it's to learn how to better spot danger, wanting to know what takes someone to the edge, or simply because evil fascinates us. Becoming obsessed with true crime appears normal, at least up to a point. See, most of us aren't doing outside research on how these villains carry out and cover up their incidents, but for Jung, that's exactly what she did. According to a report from the Financial News, Jung's phone revealed internet searches such as method and corpse abandonment. What was Jung Yoo-jung planning on doing with this sort of information, especially when she was supposed to be preparing for an upcoming Korean civil service exam, according to her grandfather who lived with her? Well, as May 2023 came around, Jung sought out English lessons, a topic that was included on the exam. But this is where Jung carried out her first step in her secret plan. My daughter is in her 3rd year of middle school. I'm looking for a tutor, Jung told potential candidates on an online tutoring app. The twist? Jung didn't have a daughter. In hindsight, the seemingly innocent conversations bore red flags. Do you live alone? Jung asked 54 people in the tutoring app before finding the perfect match, or rather, perfect criteria. The tutor had to be female, living alone, and doing their extracurricular classes at home. This specific criteria seemed to suggest a type of person that was isolated, with no one questioning her whereabouts. On May 24th, Jung reached out as the fictional mother again, telling the 20-year-old tutor she would send her daughter over for a consultation in 2 days. With this, Jung had set the stage, and her next move was to act on it. Jung played the part of the fictional middle schooler, thrifting a school uniform online to disguise herself, something that wouldn't raise any questions, as a police spokesperson said Jung is short, and with the uniform on, the tutor probably mistook her for a middle school student. Jung secured the school uniform on May 26th, and that same evening around 5:30 p.m., set out to see her new English tutor. As they met face to face, the tutor had no idea her fate had already been sealed. It was around 6 p.m. when Jung entered the tutor's residence in Gunjeonggu, Busan. A few minutes later, the tutor asked for Jung's age, expecting a 16-year-old middle schooler. Jung lied about her age once more, stating, "I am actually 25 years old." Then, quickly, Jung revealed her horrifying plan. "I want to end myself, but it's unfair to pass alone, so I came looking for someone to pass with." The tutor, startled by Jung's unsettling appearance, tried to run away. "It's a joke," Jung reassured her. But at that moment, as the tutor was caught off guard, Jung pulled out a blade from her bag and struck the tutor. Jung reportedly wielded the blade for over 10 minutes, inflicting more than 110 wounds, ultimately causing the tutor to pass away at the scene. Forensic medicine professor Yu Sung-ho believes Jung wasn't aimlessly wielding the blade, but rather calculated her moves.
흥분해서 휘둘렀다거나 상대방의 어떤 리액션이 있어서 했다기보다는 그 자체가 거기에 치명상인 걸 알고 살해를 목적으로 휘둘렀다라고.
But if Jung's strike was fatal, why did it go on for 10 minutes? And why were there light marks on other parts? Purely to cause pain, criminal psychologist Oh Yoon-sung explained. The night wasn't over yet. Jung needed to dispose of the evidence. Despite studying true crime cases for 3 months, Jung didn't seem to plan how to deal with the aftermath without leaving traces. She was caught on CCTV and had an eyewitness. Here's how it went down. Jung changed out of her crimson-stained uniform and changed into the tutor's clothes. About 1 hour and 20 minutes after the tutor's passing, Jung left the tutor's residence, leaving the crime scene behind. Jung was seen 6 to 7 kilometers away in an area near her neighborhood. CCTV captured her walking on the sidewalk before she walked off camera. 10 minutes later, she appeared on CCTV on the other side of the road with a heavy shopping bag in her hand. It turns out the moment she was off camera, Jung had entered a store, walked up to the 3rd floor of the building, and grabbed everything she needed in 10 minutes, including a carrying bag, bleach, and a blade. Shortly after, Jung entered another store where she was seen buying large garbage bags. Somewhere in the process, Jung retrieved a suitcase from her own apartment. When Jung returned to the tutor's residence, she dismembered parts to put in a suitcase and placed remaining parts in garbage bags. Jung damaged parts to allegedly avoid fingerprint identification and kept the tutor's cell phone, ID card, and wallet to supposedly make it look like a disappearance. After cleaning up, Jung would leave the tutor's residence for the 2nd time, this time bringing the suitcase and garbage bags with her to her apartment 6 to 7 kilometers away. Jung left the garbage bags at her apartment and stepped outside once again, this time to dispose of the remains inside the suitcase. With all the back and forth, night quickly turned into morning. It was now May 27th as CCTV footage captured Jung walking briskly along the streets of Busan with her suitcase in hand. Jung appeared to have a disturbing sense of calmness emanating from her. Some would even say she appeared excited. But her next move would ultimately backfire on her. It was 1 a.m. when Jung entered a taxi and asked to be dropped off near Nakdong River. See, it wasn't the early morning hour or the directions to a grassy area that were odd. No, it was the suspicious smell coming from the suitcase and her refusal to let the driver help load the heavy suitcase into the car. As they arrived at the destination, Jung exited the taxi and disappeared into the dark with the suitcase, alone. The taxi driver took this time to phone police about the smell and potential red stains on the suitcase, something netizens were very thankful for. While this happened, Jung disposed of the remains. What was chilling about the area was not that it was far away and out of sight, but how well it could aid in covering up Jung's crime. The location contained tall grass, small animals, and insects, meaning it could speed up 2 years of decomposition into 1 week if the conditions are right, according to Yu Sung-ho.
만약에 이 상태가 이게 적발이 안 됐다면 나중엔 백골화된 시신이 발견되고 시신을 신원확인이 어렵게 될 가능성도 있습니다.
But Jung wouldn't be so lucky. After all, the police were on their way. In the meantime, the taxi driver took a smoke break and waited for Jung to return. In less than 15 to 20 minutes, Jung returned, but something looked different. The suitcase that looked heavier 20 minutes ago now appeared lighter. A couple of hours later, police found Jung and the interrogation began. This is where we see how easy it was for Jung to lie her way out of responsibility. During interrogation, Jung faked an illness, but when sent to the hospital, a test revealed nothing was wrong with her. When confronted about the remains, Jung claimed they belonged to her recently birthed baby, who she ended. But when tested,
검사를 해보니까 자궁 내 출산한 경험이 없었다. 이게 나와가지고 그게 이제 이상하다는 얘기는 이제 했었거든요.
Another testimony from Jung alleged she accidentally took the life of the tutor after getting in an argument with each other. But as evidence was gathered, including CCTV footage, the suitcase containing dismembered remains, and the tutor's ID card in Jung's possession, Jung changed her story again. When I arrived at the victim's house, someone was already committing a crime. He'll let me live as a victim if I hide the body. As the testimonies kept changing, more evidence was gathered. A search and seizure at Jung's residence exposed the rest of the remains in garbage bags, and Jung's crime-related internet searches were found. A disturbing memo written by Jung was also found, stating, "If you don't take a life, you won't be relieved," something experts were deeply interested in, which we'll touch on later in the video. Police also found clothes with keys in the apartment's public dumpster. Jung's movements during May 20th to 27th were also investigated, leading prosecutors to believe Jung's crime was premeditated and prepared alone, noting she prepared the blade in advance. 4 days after the arrest, on May 31st, with persuasion from her father and police, Jung confessed her crime, admitting she took the life of the tutor. Jung also admitted her interest in true crime media influenced her.
그래가지고 살인에 대한 충동이 있어갖고 실제 살인을 해보고 싶어서 도매에 이르게.
Police were able to charge Jung of dismembering and abandoning a body, and with the confession, law enforcement chose to disclose her identity to the public, including her name, photo, and year of birth.
차례 붙잡힌 피의자는 99년생, 만 23세 정유정입니다.
The next day, on June 1st, Jung appeared in public for the first time since the incident. With her hands in restraints, she was accompanied by detectives and police as she exited the Busan Dongye police station. Jung was swarmed by reporters who questioned her behavior the night of May 26th. Why did you end the victim? Why did you specifically target this victim? When did you start feeling the urge to take a life? Do you have anything to say to the victim or the bereaved family? Jung froze in silence with her head down. And when she spoke, it was very brief. I'm very sorry to the victims and the bereaved families. To the victims and their families, I'm sorry. Reporters continued to question Jung about the steps in her plan, asking, "You went back and forth several times after the murder. Was there a reason? Did you try to disguise it as a missing case?" In a calm voice, Jung responded, "I think I was out of my mind. I'm sorry." The questions continued. Have you ever searched for a target like this before the crime? Where did you learn to commit crimes? Have you been using that app for a long time? Jung apologized once again before ending off with a strange remark. I have nothing to say. I'm sorry. I will sincerely participate in the prosecution's investigation. Jung's calm demeanor and choice of words shocked the public. The way she talks without a single tremble in her voice. Oh, that's not a human. Wow, there are many personalities. You suddenly became nice. What do you mean you're going to be sincere in the prosecution's investigation? While many were outraged. If you apologize now, will the deceased come back to life? Death penalty is the only answer. Please give the criminal a strong punishment. Just a psycho. Judge, rule properly. Despite Jung's identity already disclosed to the public, her choice to cover her face upset many people. And while the public was demanding justice, experts were analyzing Jung's actions, stunned by her calm behavior the night the incident took place. Forensic psychology professor Lee Soo-jung told YTN Jung's attitude was very unusual, further elaborating, "A person normally panics and becomes terrified when they end someone, even if they are a criminal, but the scene of Jung going to her home to get a suitcase to carry the deceased body shows no sign of panic or horror." Lawyer Bak Sung-mun also noted Jung revealed a strange experience at the time of the incident. She said this during the prosecution's investigation. "I definitely ended the victim, but the victim was alive and spoke to me. I think I'm out of my mind, so I'm asking you to do a mental evaluation." And so, on June 7th, police conducted a PCLR test to determine if Jung was a psychopath, a test commonly used in South Korea criminal cases. For context, an average person usually scores 5 to 6 out of 40. The bar for clinical psychopathy is 30 or higher in the US and 25 or higher in Korea. An example from the US is Ted Bundy, who had a score of 39. So, where did Jung fall on the PCLR test? 28. This shocked experts as she scored 1 point higher than notorious South Korean criminal Kang Ho-sun, a man who was sentenced to death for ending 10 women, including his wife and mother-in-law. For further context, Jung scored 11 points lower than Yoo Young-chul, a man who was sentenced to death for taking the lives of 26 people and has records with 14 separate counts of robbery and SA since high school. And if we take a closer look at the PCLR test, there are behaviors Jung displayed during and before the incident. The PCLR test is composed of 20 questions measuring personality traits or observed behaviors such as pathological lying, lack of sincerity, lack of remorse or guilt, lack of empathy, parasitic lifestyle, and impulsivity, to name a few. Experts particularly emphasize the pathological lying trait, noting the several testimonies Jung made up, lying about her age to the tutor and lying about an illness during the investigation. Experts also pointed out how we witnessed Jung's impulsivity and lack of empathy during the incident. It appears that Jung Yoo-jung's intense desire to take a life consumed her to the extent that she failed to consider the next steps after the incident, such as preparing her own alternative clothing, according to Bae Sang-hoon, a professor of police administration at Woosuk University. More information would also come out about Jung allegedly living a parasitic lifestyle as mentioned in the PCLR test. A report from News A revealed Jung lived with her grandfather in an apartment in Busan, but Jung rarely left the residence and didn't greet her neighbors when she ran into them.
손해가 있는 거는 아는데 대박이 나니까 잘 모르겠어. 하느냐? 이 행사는 거의 제가 볼 때에는 잘 안 하는 것 같더라고요.
News 8 also dubbed Jung as a loner, revealing she spent 5 years at home, jobless, and barely met anyone after graduating from high school in 2018. Police also stated Jung had no social ties and seemed to have a closed personality, which former high school classmates confirmed in an interview with MBN News 7. No words, go around alone, the one who doesn't have a presence, didn't have any friends at the time. She was always behind the curtain when eating snacks, eating alone behind a curtain. Professor of Police Administration Bae Sang-hoon explained what the curtain-hiding behavior could possibly mean.
자기 몸을 감추려고 하는 거잖아요. 일종의 상당히 큰 방어성이잖아요. 상당히 낮은 자존감을 가지고 있는 외톨이일 가능성이 높다.
Why was Jung so closed off? Was she bullied or causing problems towards other students or staff? Former classmates alleged there was no such thing. Some even tried to befriend her. Even though I said hello, she didn't accept me as a friend. She didn't answer me. So what could have triggered Jung years later? Could Jung's 5 years of unemployment have something to do with it? SBS interviewed an HR manager who claimed Jung applied to be a golf caddy at their company in 2017. However, during Jung's job interview, she stayed silent for every question.
자기가 이 일을 직업을 갖기 위해 왔는데 고개를 숙여 쳐다보지를 못해요. 제가
With an obvious failed interview, the manager didn't call back, but he remembered she called back and showed a hidden side to herself. Jung allegedly protested about not getting the job and even cursed at the manager. Jung's resume was also odd. She claimed to be fond of interacting with people and listed money or dorm space as the reason for wanting the job, seeming to show she wanted to escape from her living environment. But instead, Jung would end up jobless for 5 years. Bae suggests Jung's psychopathic tendencies awakened during her prolonged isolation. Considering Jung Yoo-jung's circumstances, there is a high likelihood that she was unable to distinguish between reality and the fantasy world of incidents she was immersed in, the professor alleged. The fantasy world Bae mentioned likely traces back to the 3 months before the incident took place, as Jung admitted her curiosity to end a life was piqued by the true crime media she consumed. As for why Jung specifically targeted this tutor, forensic psychology professor Lee Soo-jung shared their suspicion. I think we can say that Jung wanted to have what the tutor had, such as her social status and academic background, and that is why she chose the victim. Something not totally off base. As Lee pointed out, they were close in age, and Jung kept the tutor's ID card after disposing of her remains. Furthermore, the two lived very different lives, Jung being isolated, antisocial, and jobless after high school, while the tutor went to a prestigious university and was sought after on the tutoring app. It's also possible Jung may have been influenced by a true crime movie. According to a police statement, Jung watched the 2012 Korean film Helpless several times, depicting a woman who takes on the life of the victim she unalived. And while media outlets angered citizens with the way they were stigmatizing introverted people when reporting on this case, experts revealed Jung's motive cannot be explained through isolation alone. According to the Korea Times, Jung was allegedly abandoned by both her parents, her mother leaving at age 1 and her father at age 6. From then on, she was raised by her grandfather. It appeared Jung had resentment towards her childhood, as Jung's phone record revealed a 2-hour phone call with her father 3 days before the incident, where she vaguely warned him of her plan. "If I do something big, Dad, you will suffer. I'm going to pass away too," Jung said, to which her father responded, "What's the big deal?" Jung also allegedly expressed feelings of sadness and asked her father for an apology for the difficult environment she had as a child. Her father allegedly did not apologize. Jung made statements such as, "I felt betrayed by my father's remarriage," and "I was frustrated because I had to continue living with my grandfather, who did not fit well." Jung's father refuted allegations that he knew of Jung's plan from those vague messages alone. He also allegedly claimed his relationship with his daughter wasn't as bad as news outlets implied. In fact, Jung's father was the first one to contact Jung when she got arrested and played a major role in convincing Jung to confess her crime. Furthermore, despite living separately, the father still kept in touch with her. With all evidence so far, the prosecution conducted a psychological analysis on Jung, concluding Jung needed someone to express her anger accumulated from childhood, such as her unfortunate growth process, discord with her family, and failure to go to college and get a job. This theory seemed to support the memo Jung wrote about needing to relieve pain. But many people have traumatic childhood experiences and didn't go on to harm others, right? So what did this mean for Jung Yoo-jung? This brings us back to the PCLR test. Prosecution believes Jung's psychopathic traits influenced her to put her harmful thoughts into action. Additionally, there is a theory that Jung may have tried to harm a third party to cause pain to her father to get his attention. Still, the public didn't want to hear the reasons. As one person stated, Don't defend it, it's just a devil. Why do you keep bringing up your unfortunate childhood environment? In fact, there's no taking back what Jung did. An innocent life was wrongly taken, and people around her are deeply hurt, including her grandfather who raised her.
그날 젊은 편제로 그 옆한테 제가 빽빽 살이하고 싶고 내 심정이죠.
Even the taxi driver who reported Jung has been traumatized and is avoiding contact with those around him after the incident. Amidst the outrage, more controversy would emerge when a document was leaked from the detention center Jung was held at. The prison meals for June 6 to July 3rd revealed 3 meals a day, consisting of a main dish and side dishes. The meals varied each day and consisted of hot meals like kimchi pork stew, beef rice cake soup, dumplings, fried pork cutlet, curry, and more. A few times a week, they would get probiotic drinks. But most shocking of all, the criminals were rewarded? On Mondays and Saturdays, inmates were given ice cream. Another recent Busan criminal imprisoned for attempted SA and unaliving, whose identity has not been disclosed yet, is also staying at the same prison, having access to these meals. With criminals who committed such heinous crimes, this level of respect angered the public. This person eats well and sleeps well in prison with national tax money. The families of the victims must be suffering secondary damage from extreme trauma. You seem to eat better than homeless. Why the hell do they take care of criminals' nutrition? Many brought up their own situations. You eat and live better than me, a self-taught student. I can't eat as much as I do after paying taxes, but she eats as much as I do with my taxes? It looks better than our school's 5,001 scholarship, ha ha ha. Crazy, I don't have money, so I've been eating rice with soy sauce and sesame oil for 3 days. Others suggested switching the meals to the bare minimum. Just rice and soy sauce, please. Raw rice so you can chew it. Just give dog food, why treat them like a human? And while Jung has confessed to her actions, her punishment is yet to be determined as her first trial has only recently begun on July 14th at Busan District Court. Jung has hired a lawyer to represent her, perhaps to lessen her punishment. Although citizens are hoping the court does justice, as one person put it, that's the ultimate level of shamelessness. You're going to hire a lawyer to live as an innocent person like that? Please, let's bring back the penalty. While experts studied Jung's case in hopes of preventing a similar incident from happening again, no one really knows what truly triggered Jung into her dark descent. This is the story of Jung Yoo-jung, the young adult who learned tactics from true crime and took an innocent life out of curiosity.